Hey everyone! So after playing the press preview version of Diablo 4 recently, I want to talk to you guys about the skill trees in Diablo 4 because I think they are very interesting and have a lot of depth to them in terms of like how you make choices with them and how you progress your character through skill points, and I felt actually really cool in this game. So you have to imagine that this is a kind of a combination of a system between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, just like many other things in Diablo 4 actually. So you can always feel or like see this unification of ideas that is found in many details, including the skill tree. So what I mean is that, for example, in Diablo 2, you have those like skill trees where you put points and you unlock further skills as you put more points and unlock higher character levels. And then there is like usually some prerequisites for reaching a certain skill. For example, the frozen orb on the sorceress is like one of the level 30 skills, and you need to have a point in ice blast and frostbolt and these kind of things. And it kind of works in that way here as well in Diablo 4. But at the same time, you have skill categories that are resembling more the types of skills that you have in Diablo 3, where you have categories like basic skills, core skills, and then like mobility skills, and they're all like grouped together in like clusters on the skill tree. So it's not like you have 3 different skill trees like in Diablo 2, where you choose either like the lightning or fire or cold on the sorceress, for example, but instead they are grouped by kind of their utility or like their impact, and like in Diablo 3. So to give you a better idea of how this works, here are actually some screenshots that I have from the press kit. So you see here, for example, there's the Barbarian skill tree. There's also a tooltip from Flay. And you start here at the top with 0 points spent. These are the basic skills. All these skills have a tag here. You can see it there. So whenever you hover over something, you can see, for example, here are the core skills. It will say core. And then, sometimes it says some other things, like this is like a, for example, bludgeoning skill, and this is like a slashing skill or something like that. So there are like various tags, and you can like very easily like understand what effects apply to certain skills and these kind of things. So you start here, and every skill you can put points in. When you level up, you get a skill point. You can also get further skill points from the renown system. I'm going to explain that another time, but basically it's like side content you can do to unlock a few extra skills. And you can put 5 points into each of those skills here. After that, you have the skill enhancements. So this is this first diamond shaped point here. You only need 1 in the skill, and then you unlock this. And then with 1 point here, you unlock this. In fact, those only have 1 rank. So all these upgrades here are only 1 rank. So this is the enhancement. And then there's upgrade 1 and upgrade 2. So this one is essentially mandatory to choose if you want to progress through to the upgrades, which you generally do. And then you have basically the choice of, it's kind of like a rune in Diablo 3, where you have like different choices to specialize the skill a little bit. And in this case, you always have 2 choices. So this is how that works. So they don't have as many runes as in Diablo 3, but the choices here are generally quite impactful. So they really specialize your skill into one or the other direction. And to stay with this Flay example here from the Barbarian, I can show you what these upgrades actually do right now in the game. So there's the first one. They always have like a name, so it's called Combat Flay, or this is like the Battle Flay. So it just like changes the name basically. But then you have the effect. For example, here the first one is like a thorns and damage reduction type of effect that you can stack up. And the second one is just a chance to make enemies vulnerable, which causes increased damage taken, and more chance of 2-handed weapons. So you can kind of like change your skill in one or the other direction to be maybe more support, or more offensive or more defenses, or you have some other choices for the different skills that are maybe one gives you movement speed, one gives you maybe some extra healing, or something like that. Now I heard from some people that the skill tree like this actually seems relatively bland, and I gotta say I disagree with this. So while you don't really have that many options per skill, you have a lot of options on the tree overall, because there's not just the skills themselves, but there's also passives, and you also just have a limited amount of points, and you cannot choose everything you want. So essentially at almost every level that you gain, you get a skill point or the extra points, you're always really torn on what to choose, because it's actually more and more options and you want to put points almost everywhere. Because first of all, you have to unlock the skills that you want to use, and then you also want to rank them up to make them more powerful. So in the case of like a damage skill, they always scale up the damage by around 10% from the base value. Or in other cases, you have like cooldown based skills, they scale down the cooldown by a little bit. So for example, some mobility skills have that, where it starts with 10 cooldown and it goes to like 9.5 and then 9, etc. So this is also quite valuable. And then you also have the passives here. So in addition to the skills, we have passives. So they look like this. These are like the square shapes with the circles. And all of these can have 3 ranks as well. And they usually either give you some kind of stat bonus, like an extra damage under a certain condition, or maybe a movement speed bonus or some defensive bonus. Or they even change some skills directly or give them extra procs and extra effects. For example, in the Rogue, there are certain passes that give you like a chance to restore energy. There are some passes that give you more movement speed when you are at high energy. So potentially you can combine some of these passive choices, and you want to put extra points into those, and they come from the same source as your skill points from leveling up. And essentially, as you level up, you will unlock more and more choices. So again, you start here at the top, these are the basic skills, and then you have to spend, I think, 2 points to get to the core skills. So this is this cluster here on the barb, and this kind of works similar for all the classes. They all have these different clusters of skills. So it starts with basic, then core, and then you have, usually something like 2-3 clusters of like mobility and defenses, and some extra like more conditional damage spells. For example, this rupture here on the barb. And you can combine these skills pretty much as you want. You don't have to choose a skill from each category. You can also go with like 2 core skills, or you can go with 3 defensive skills or something like that, and then not choose anything in this category. It's kind of like just unlocking these categories based on the amount of total points spent up to that point. So for example, here you need like, let's say 15 points to unlock this category, and then 20 here, and then 25 there. And it just like unlocks as you go. At the bottom of the tree, there's also this ultimate skill cluster. So there's 3 ultimate skills per class right now. So here's an example of the sorcerer skill tree. This is near the bottom basically. And here you have like Inferno, and then there's like Unstable Currents, and there's like some freeze skill. I don't remember the name right now. And they are a bit different. So they only have 1 rank. You see here, 1 out of 1. And they also don't have upgrade choices. They just have 2 upgrades, essentially, that directly influence how the skill works, and that are generally taken if you take the ultimate skill itself. These ultimate skills definitely have a really huge cooldown, so this is the case for pretty much all of them as far as I know. And you have to be quite thoughtful about when to use them. There are certain cooldown reset mechanics for some of these. So for example, on the Rogue, there's a way to reset the Death Trap that is like one of the ultimate skills. It's actually a pretty cool skill, and you can actually use it way more frequently, but there's other skills where this is not really the case. Not every build will necessarily even run with an ultimate skill, so this is really something that you have to build around, in my opinion. So it's totally fine to go without it and have way shorter cooldowns and have way more like utility all the time, versus the ultimate skill that you can use whenever you really need it. And lastly, at the bottom of the skill tree, after you have unlocked a total of 33 points, you can get those ultimate passes. So you only see this here a little bit. So there's 2, and on the sorcerers there's a total of 6. You can actually see one of them is chosen here, but it's hidden behind this tooltip here basically. But these also work a little bit like the ultimate skills. You can have only 1 of them, and those passives are incredibly impactful. They are almost like build defining, or at the very least they push your build into like a certain like direction or like a certain archetype. And this is like a pretty much common theme across the entire skill tree in general. So it's not like you have this build and you have to choose exactly this one skill with that many points, and then you choose this passive and that passive, and everything is kind of locked in. But instead, it kind of seems to me that, okay, you choose like your main skill, like one of the core skills, for example, that you really like. So in this case, it's like the fireball on the sorcerers, for example. You have those 6 different core skills here. So there's like the incinerate, the fireball, the frozen orb, there's chain lightning, etc. And you just kind of like choose your main skill like this, and then you try to build around it in any way you like. So you can combine this with, you know, multiple defensive skills. You can combine this with like fire and cold and lightning in any way you want. You can put in a teleport there for good measure. And then you can also maybe have one of the ultimates, or you can take, you know, yet another like, you know, kind of cooldown skill that you use whenever you're out of resources, when you can't cast fireball. And it doesn't really seem like really like so, you know, set in stone with what you're doing with your build. One person's fireball build can look completely different from another person's fireball build, and it seems like there's just so many kind of viable choices to me, and this is really awesome. And you have to remember that the skill tree is only one of many systems that allow you to customize your build. There's many pieces like the items, the legendary effects, the unique items potentially. There's a paragon that unlocks at level 50 that unlocks like a whole range of like, you know, stacking certain stats or certain effects and procs, and specializing your build into a certain direction. So this is just one of these pieces, but you can definitely notice this theme of this like player choice that Blizzard also has talked about at various points, where you have options and they seem all like reasonable and viable. Of course, it doesn't mean that you can just like randomly assign points everywhere and consider it a good build. You know, like if you go around and you put like, you know, 2 points in every of those core skills and you run around with those, you're not gonna get far, because, well, you're just wasting your potential by not taking, you know, one of these and specializing into it, and, you know, adding other, you know, utility skills to it, for example. But in my opinion, this whole skill tree system feels really amazing in Diablo 4. And then there's also the refunding of skill points, so you can actually like adjust your build, you know, pretty much on the fly for a bit of gold. This gold cost does scale up, and I also know there was like a lot of discussion around this topic already. But I think this actually also is like a pretty good way of like making skill choices matter without really punishing you for, you know, making some mistakes or experimenting a little bit. So essentially you start out at low level, this refunding costs nothing, and then it slowly raises the cost as you level. So the idea behind this is that you know, make choices and kind of, you know, specialize towards a certain direction, but you can also undo them whenever you want for a cost. So eventually it's going to lead to a point where, you know, respeccing like, you know, the 50 points or something is going to cost quite a lot of gold if you want to respec your entire build and make something else. So this is not really the intention. And instead they want you to, you know, customize your character further and like just build onto it further and further, with giving you the option to change stuff around. So, I mean, there will be the possibility to completely unspec it, and you have to grind up some gold for it to do that later on. But I don't think this is going to be the biggest deal if you want to completely swap your build around like a few times here and there. Of course, it's not going to be like in Diablo 3, where you just like swap it like every 5 minutes, depending on if you do Nephilim Rifts or Greater Rifts or something like that. So this is absolutely not going to happen. And it's a little bit more like Diablo 2, where, you know, your choices are kind of locked in place, but again, you can like, you know, move things around whenever you need to. I actually really like this system with the respecking. I think it's cool that you know, have a certain character and then you play it, you know, from level 1 to, you know, all the way to 100, and you kind of build around this one theme that you wanted to do with this character. And then, you know, next time you make another character, and, you know, instead of a fireball sorceress, you're gonna play like a frozen orb sorceress, and you're gonna have like some ice theme, and, you know, gonna have other synergies, you're gonna have other legendaries, and it's gonna feel like a completely different character. So I guess this is the idea here. They want you to play another character for another whole build, but you still have the option, you know, if you don't do it all the time, to also take a high level character and respec it to something else. So I think we're gonna see a bit of both. We're gonna see people leveling completely new characters, even with the same class, potentially even with this, you know, using the same main skill and building it completely differently. And other people that will just have like one character and they play this build for a while, and then at some point they're gonna say, yeah, let's try something else, and I'm gonna respec everything and, you know, go full lightning or something like that. And this is also totally fine. If you want to read up on all of the classes skills, we have our Barbarian, Rogue and Sorcerer overview posts here that cover the class in general, and then also have all the tooltips from all the skills described here, so you can already go check them out. I will be going over them as well myself in more detail, talking about the skills. I've used them all and, you know, tried various things, so I can give you a little bit of an idea of how they work. I can actually show you some of the like clips as well for some of those skills at least, Especially on the Rogue, we have a lot of footage actually where you can actually see every skill in action. So I'm definitely going to be working on that and show you like how this comes together as a whole build. Here I just wanted to cover like the overall idea of like how you make a build, how you use the skill tree, because I believe it's a really cool system and I'm really excited, you know, to be experimenting with this. And there's, as I said, many different choices, and you have like these several like archetypes of builds, but you don't even have like, you know, this or that build with like, you know, cookie cutter choices in every single slot for every single point. So of course we're gonna have build guides down the line. We're gonna tell you, you know, what we think is the best for you know, the overall progression or something like that. But there's always these adjustments you can make based on your priorities, based on your play style, on just what you find fun. You know, might swap out this skill for that skill. You might swap out these passes for those passes, and the character will feel a little bit different. I think compared to especially this skill tree that we saw from, when was that, quarterly update, September 2020, which is, well, quite old at this point, but you might remember this. I think this is a huge improvement, and I'm really happy with how this turns out, with how it feels. I think it's going to be pretty cool when you actually get to play it. So this is what I have to share here for now. I'm going to be covering a lot of other topics about Diablo 4 in the next days and weeks. So stay tuned for a lot more videos to come, talking about every single thing imaginable, and also let me know what you want to hear. Hope you like this one, and I'll see you guys next time.